Hi and welcome to niftyDuck, Tom here. In the last video we saw the basics of the Unity interface. Now you know how it works and something about the components like the rigid bodies or the colliders. In this video we are seeing the basics of programming with the C# language. How does it work, the good mindset, the libraries, classes, methods, the print command and variables. Let's start right now. First, open your project in Unity Hub. To program with C#, you must install Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. You will find the links to the installation pages for the Windows and Mac versions in the description. To connect Visual Studio to Unity, you have to go up here, Preferences, External Tools, and select Visual Studio. Before we add our first script in this project, you should know what exactly is a script. In Unity, a C# script is a component connected to a certain game object, where all the magic happens. You can write code to make an object do some particular actions. For example, if you want that the player moves, you can add in the player's inspector a script component. And inside this script, you will have to write the commands that you want. For example, if you press W, the player must move forward, or if you click the spacebar, the player must jump. As you can see, I've reset the scene, and now there are only the main camera and the directional light. In this video, we are not going to connect the script to a dynamic object, but we are working with the console, the first step of programming in every language. But if we want to make a script, we must connect it to an object. Because Unity can run only these scripts that are inactive objects in the scene. So I'll create an empty one. To make it, go in the hierarchy, right click, create empty. Now we have an invisible game object, so the position doesn't matter. If we select it, you will notice that it has got only the transform component. But we want to make a script, so add component, new script, and I'm calling it test script. Our empty object has got now the script, and we can control it. Double click to open the test script, and Visual Studio will open. Oh gosh, what are these complicated writings? What is mono behavior? What is void start, void update, and all these brackets? This is the part where all the programmers get scared the first time. But don't worry, it isn't difficult. Let's start from the first 3 lines. These commands are made to call a library. A library is a bunch of classes and other stuff that you can use in your project. For example, using Unity Engine allows you to use some things for coding. If we delete this library, you will see that the monobehavior class will make an error in the code, and you can't use the commands that are inside this class. So, you need libraries to get access to code some particular things. Another example. Let's suppose that you want to change scene by script. Then you must start using unityengine.scene management. And that's the same for a lot of other things. Now you're seeing this public class test script monobehavior with these brackets. First of all, what is a class? We can define a class a bunch of prefabricated commands that you can use in code. Here you can see monobehavior. It's a class which contains all the commands that are useful and fundamental for making games in Unity. So, without monobehavior, you can't program with Unity. In summary, libraries allows you to get access to classes and other sections. For example, the scene management, the UI system, the particle system, etc. Classes permit you to get fundamental commands. In this pyramid, every level can't exist without the one below. These brackets in C# Show when a certain code block starts and ends. A code block, if you don't know what it is a part of code contained inside some brackets. For example, I can write, if the user is clicking the spacebar, then do these instructions. Inside the brackets there are the commands that we want to execute. Okay, now let's see these code blocks, void start and void update. These are called methods that get active in certain moments. The void start, as you can intuit in the name, gets active when you start the game in the first frame. It's used to initialize things and prepare the scene as you want. The void update is a method which executes code in every frame of the game, so it's continuously active. It's fundamental for instructions like the player movement because the game must recognize in every moment if you are pressing a key. There are a lot of other types of methods. An example is the void on collision enter, which activates when the game object's collider slams into another collider. This is useful if you want that the game ends when you slam into an obstacle. Now that you know what classes, libraries and methods are, we can start with your first instruction, the print command. This is used to get messages in the console, and it's useful to learn how does code work. So, in the void start, let's write print, parenthesis, double apexes, hello world, with a semicolon. Next to print, there are the parentheses, where you have to write the message that you want. In C#, the semicolon is fundamental for indicating that the command is ended. If you don't write it, the instruction will continue going in the next line, and it will give you compile errors. So save it with Ctrl S for Windows or Command S for Mac, and then go into Unity. If you start the game and watch the console, you will see our message. So, in the first frame of the game, the code ran the void start. Inside the void start, there was the print instruction. Did you understand it? If we return in Visual Studio, then copy the command in void update and start the game another time, you will notice that the print command is called every single frame of the game. But now we are going to see the most fundamental part of coding, the variables. What are them? You can imagine a variable like a small box which contains a value. The value inside this box has a type. It can be an integer variable, which has only an integer number, or it can be a float one, with decimal number. Other types of variable are bool, which is a boolean value, so it can be only true or false. Char, that is a single character. It can be a letter, a number, a symbol, etc. Or string, that can be a sentence, a series of numbers, or everything you want. Hello world that we've written before is a string value. Creating a new value is an operation called declaring a variable. If you want to do it, you will have to follow this syntax. Type name equals to a variable with a semicolon. The type can be an int, float, string, bool, etc. And you have to give it a name. I advise you a name which is significant, that makes you understand what the variable contains. For example, bool player is dead equals to false, or int current score equals to 0. When you give a name to a variable, you can't use spaces, so you can write them like this, the camel method, or this, the snake method. I personally use the camel one. Variables can have numbers as a first character in the name. but they can't have them after the first one. To discover how variables values work, let's declare and print some types. I advise you to declare them outside the two methods, because every variable works only inside the code block, where it has been declared. If I create it here, in the void start, it won't work inside the void update or in other methods. If I create it here, it will work in all the script, but it depends. If a variable has to work only in a method, you can also declare it in that one. Okay, so let's declare something. Int my int equals to 10. Float my float equals to 5.5f. Because in C#, the float variables must have an f at the end of the value. String my string equals to hello. For the string variables, you must indicate the value inside double apexes. Char my char equals to C. The char must be declared between single apexes. Bool my bool equals to true. You can also make something like this. This is the declaring part, so when you create a variable. And this is the initialization, when you give it a value. In the void start, I'm going to print every value, so print my int, print my float, print my string, print my char, print my bool. Save the code and run the game. You will see these messages with all the variables' values. You can also print more than one thing in a command by connecting them with a plus symbol. For example, print the integer variable is plus my int plus, and the string variable is plus my string, semicolon. And that's the result. Now, you know what are classes, methods, libraries, variables, and you can use the print instruction. Great! In the next video I will show you other programming concepts and operations. If you haven't done it yet, subscribe and click the bell to get notifications when a new video arrives. If you are curious about game development, I advise you to watch my other videos about my games. So guys, see you in the next video. Bye from niftyDuck.